So if you want true transparency, sensible transparency, you want to be a conductive leader, you also have to design your patterns of work for flow. That also means you need to distribute that decision-making. Remember, we're talking about the organisational construct of governance as a whole. And that means our patterns of work need to allow us to distribute the decision-making. And when we talk about distributing that decision-making, that's a very important thing, because what we see quite regularly is organisational governance is actually being constructed to create a bottleneck where we own it, we decide on it, we decide how much information gets created, and we decide what information flows up and what it flows down. And Phil talked about it just before in sensible transparency, is that bidirectional flow. So you can see these are symbiotic, we call them symbiotic. But that distributing that decision-making enables those decisions to be made at the right level at the right time. And to do that, you need guide rails, not guardrails. So this is where I'll challenge you a little bit. So organisations have built guardrails, and they built guardrails, and they built guardrails. So let's start with guardrails. What is the definition of a guardrail? Guardrail is the last thing that stops you from going off a cliff. That's what it's meant for in a car, or whatever it be. In your organisation, that's what those guardrails are. They should be the last thing that stops you from going off a cliff or doing something you shouldn't, or doing harm to the organisation, or etc. Right? But the reality of that is something went wrong in the organisation, we put a guardrail in place. Something went wrong, we put another one, we put another one, we put another one, we put another one, to the point where we don't even know why we're doing that, why we're ticking that box, why it's flowing into that and stopping. Those guardrails have now become the system of no. And I'll give you an example of that. I was working with an organisation last year, who are a very large utility company. And when I started working with them, it would take them 2 years to get something from inception through the governing systems, which was built on guardrails, all these guardrails that they had to deal with, before they could actually deliver. They had to take this to the regulator as part of their guardrails. And I was invited along, and I asked her, I said at the end of it, I said, do you mind if I ask a question? 96-page document they had to go through, right? And I said to the regulator, how much of that do you really use? How much do you need? Because it doesn't seem like you were going through all of it. And they said, oh, I need these, and these, and these. I said, what about the rest of it? Oh, we thought you needed that, which had sparked this inquiry. And what we did was we spent some time. We pulled the guardrails apart, and we came up with the minimum required governance, MRG I call it, minimum required governance, that built these guardrails that allows you to have the right escalation point to the right people at the right time in the right place. We then created guide rails that allowed the people in the work to distribute that decision-making, the people who know the work, the people that do the work, close in person, place and time, to make the decisions where they need to be. When I talk about guide rails, what I'm talking about is when you drive the new cars, they have the guidance system that keeps you in between the lines, right? If you repeatedly keep going over the lines, what does it do? It invokes the crash system. That's exactly what guide rails in an organisation are. These are the guide rails that they know that they can make decisions within. They know that they're in the right direction, or your governing systems or your AI systems know that's where they go. If it steps outside of those or is a repeated infraction, then your guardrails are invoked. We need to do that with our systems. We need to unpick the guardrails to create that adaptive flow to allow our organisation to have that ability to flow. The last one is enabling dynamic reteaming, because in amongst all of this and that notion of stability that we talked about at the beginning, the notion of stability and control is that our teams don't change. So I'm here to say I've been doing this agile thing, again, I'll say it again, for the best part of 3 decades. I've seen one real true sticky team. Sticky teams is one of the worst things Agile has ever invented. The reality of it is your teams are going to change, particularly with an organisational construct that's affected by extrinsic and intrinsic VUCA, which is every organisation. So I take this from Heidi Heffler. If you haven't read her book, Dynamic Reteaming, I suggest you do. It's a great book. And she says, your teams are going to change. You'd better get better at it. I take it to even the other length. Your organisation is going to change, so you'd better get better at it. So we need to look at our patterns of work, design for flow, distribute that decision-making, guide rails, not guardrails, and enable our organisation to use the dynamic reteaming. That gives us the sensible transparency enablement, and it allows our leaders to be more conducive.